Hello and welcome to the CFB SuperShow Q&A edition, live for week 11 of the college football season. We're out here doing our thing, grinding through the main slate on DraftKings, the early and main on FanDuel. Lots of good games today for us to talk about. There is also a ton of college basketball going on as the season started on Monday. We have the 8-game main CBB slate, which is locking at the same exact time as CFB, which is going to be happening over the next, we don't want that happening, which is going to be happening over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then we have all day basketball Sunday, Monday, every single day. We love it. Lots to get to today. We're going to talk ownership. We're going to talk about injury, news dumps, all of that good stuff. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, make sure you drop them in the chat. I will work my way through the Discord and answer those questions live on the air as well. Let's start with the news. In the news. All right, let's pull it up. So Bryson Daly, the Army quarterback that everybody loved last week, and he was projected to be major chalk. He is going to play. He's going to start. And what's funny is right now he doesn't project to be that highly owned, and that's simply because Kanye Udo is going to be one of the highest owned running backs on the slate, probably the highest owned player on the slate. And a lot of people still haven't put the 2 and 2 together of a quarterback and a running back working out so well together. So there's not going to be a lot of people wanting to do that, which means Daly and his 9.5K price point aren't going to be very highly owned. Daly had a mystery ailment, sounded like a sickness of some sort. They call him Captain America. If he's under 10% owned, like it sounds like, it seems like, and looks like he's going to be, he is a fantastic play. Could you even imagine paying up for 2 quarterbacks today? Because we know we're all over Shedeur Sanders. But could we be over Bryson Daly as well against a North Texas team that has no hope whatsoever of stopping him? So that's the first part of the news. We also have it was a move to questionable for Trey Harris of Ole Miss. Now a move back to doubtful. Seems like he will not go. Jordan Watkins and Caden Lee have both been moved up to probable for Ole Miss. Now, not exactly a situation I want to get too involved with as they're facing Georgia. Might feel inclined to play Watkins after going for 200-plus receiving yards and 5 touchdowns last week. He will not do that against Georgia. He probably will never do that again for the rest of his life. I would be more apt to play Caden Lee if you feel you got to play somebody from Ole Miss, but I'm just not going there myself. I don't feel like I have to. Kyle Monaghay from Rutgers, he is out. And that means Jake on the show Thursday was asking, man, we need some value. Where's it going to come from? We have the 3.4K Antoine Raymond from Rutgers. You may shudder about that play, and that's fair, but guess what? He played 44.4% of the snaps last week, even with Kyle around. He is going to be a bell cow here against Minnesota. The only other real healthy running back on the team is Jashawn Benjamin, who is a redshirt sophomore. He's going to spell Raymond, but this is going to be all Raymond all the time. And Rutgers, they had some success throwing the football to Diamir Miller. He was the only receiver healthy against USC, 11, 131, and 14 targets for a big game. He's only 4K. I could understand wanting to go there. Perhaps the Greek rifle there in a revenge spot could be the look, but we know at the end of the day, Rutgers is going to want to run the football regardless. That's their identity. And I think we see a lot of Raymond touches. Even with Kyle around, he saw, 17, which was 2 receptions, 15 carries. He has been working hard to be a better pass protection guy, and they're going to use him as a receiver as well out of the backfield. 20-plus carries seems like an inevitability. If you can add 2, 3, 4 receptions, regardless of that yardage total, we're just looking for those PPR points. Raymond at 3-4 doesn't have to do a lot already, but 20 carries, 75 yards, a touchdown, 3 receptions, 15, 20 yards. Maybe we get a second touchdown. That's just going to be a potential slate breaker for a near min price. You do not get bell cow-esque running backs at that price point very often. He's not a real appealing look necessarily, but you want to get to know this name because next year he's going to be the RB1 for this team, and he's going to be a guy in the 7-8K range that we're talking about regularly. So why wouldn't you want to get exposure to him against a Minnesota team that, you know, might look good defensively, and they definitely have some defensive prowess, but it's not as if they're a who's who when it comes to defending the run. Josh McCray, Josh McCray, 7 carries, but 72 yards and a touchdown. That was against the Illinois game there in their most recent one. You go back to the USC game, Joe Marks went over 100 yards. Khalil Mullings for Michigan, over 100 yards. Caleb Johnson, over 200 yards. They did good against UCLA. UCLA's got issues. They're good now, I guess. They did good against the Maryland run game. Maryland doesn't have much of a run game. So when you look at it like that, yes, they've been pretty good. Nevada, Rhode Island, but when they face comparable or competitive teams, or even a running back with capabilities and talent such as Khalif Raymond, they've struggled quite a bit. So I know a lot of people are on Darius Taylor in this game, myself included, but I think it's a big mistake not to get Raymond into some of your lineups there. He could very well fail and not work out at all, but at 3.4K, I just don't see how we get away from that with the guaranteed touches. Dymere Miller, more of a GPP look to me personally. Other news, Caden Priestcorn is in, so Ole Miss getting healthy very fast in a matchup that we don't particularly care about or feel great about. Let's see here. Garrett Green will not play. Marichal is going to start. So you've got that brewing. CJ Donaldson in, but banged up a lot. So you've got Jaheim White still as a play that we like. Questions flowing in here. Yeah, that's the main news at the moment. Oh yeah? Come to drop some plays on us here. All right, buddy. Hey, what's up, T9, my man? How are you? And then Tony asks, any bets in football sides and totals? I'll get to those here in a second. We're going to keep cruising right along. I am going to talk about ownership here while I wait for some other news dumps. And then we'll start flowing through the questions. So this is an aggregate of the top 5 highest owned players on DraftKings at each position. Starting with quarterback, we have Will Howard. The Ohio State stack is brewing. We like some Quinshon Judkins today as a GPP look, but we're going to see a lot of Ohio State passing stack going up against a Purdue defense that they should absolutely dominate. Shedeur Sanders, love him. Thomas Castellanos, who's underpriced. We've established that. Jelon Daniels, who is less than 6K. And then Baron Morton of Texas Tech. Makes sense. That Colorado Texas Tech game, going to be lots of points, going to be a fun, sure. At running back, Kanye Udo, highest owned player on the slate. And right behind him, Quintravian Wisner of Texas. Now, I'm getting a lot of questions. You're not talking about Texas very much. You didn't write up Wisner. Everybody's going to be on him. I just don't particularly love Texas chalk. We've gotten away with fading Jaden Blue as chalk twice. Mostly got away with fading Wisner as chalk. Jarek Gibson's still around. The passing game's still there. They are playing a porous Florida team, but I just am not comfortable playing a 45% owned Texas running back right now. That's just me, and I could very well be buried because of it, but haven't been yet. Phil Maffa, we knew he was going to be high owned. Darius Taylor, highest owned of the expensive running backs, love him. And then Devin Neal getting some love here against the Iowa State. Devin Neal's good for a touchdown, 80 to 90 yards at minimum. Cheap price still. We love Devin Neal typically. This could be a 4 running back slate. There are plenty of them to do it. So if you want to go that route, you can definitely play that. As of now, I'm playing 2 quarterbacks, which is out of character for me. But I have a very distinct way I want to play this morning. Wide receivers, Josh Kelly, highest owned receiver on the slate from Texas Tech. He went nuts last week. People wanted to carry that on against Colorado. It's going to be shadowed by Travis Hunter, perhaps. We'll see. Jeremiah Smith. I put Jeremiah Smith / Emeka Ugbuka, both of them seeing a sizable amount. We're going to see Ohio State passing stacks today. The last 2 weeks, we've been pretty high on Jeremiah Smith at low rostership. It's pretty good 2 weeks ago. Last week, not so much. But this week, everybody's doing it because of Purdue. Then you have Daniel Jackson of Minnesota seeing nice rostership. His price went down a little bit again. Dom Lovett of Georgia, because he's cheap. He's getting targets. And Georgia receiver room's pretty full at this point with Humphreys now healthy. I think we can do a little bit better than Dom Lovett. If he sees anywhere over 20%, to me, that's a fade. And then Tony Johnson showing up as the preferred value receiver for people today and getting some questions this morning. Why am I not higher on Tony Johnson? And really the reason for that is because Xavier Henderson and Joe Royer still exist. Targets wise, Henderson has been pretty lackluster the last 3 games, and that's coincided with the fact that Tony Johnson has really stepped up over the last 3 games. You'll see week 7 against UCF, 10 targets, week 8 against Arizona State, 5 targets, and then week 9 against Colorado, he had 8 targets. Henderson under double-digit targets in all of those. You go back earlier this season when Henderson was crushing double-digit targets from weeks 1 through 4. Here's what Johnson's targets were: 0, 4, 3, and 2. So something has to give here. Either Henderson's going to continue to underperform, and he's got a great matchup against West Virginia, or he's going to break out, and Tony Johnson's going to be relegated to 3 catches for 18 yards, no touchdowns. And that's simply not going to get it done. Cheap, yes, but I can't sit here and say that he's going to be a 30% owned play, so we got to play him. I think there's enough value elsewhere. Very big leverage spot for me is the fact that nobody wants to roster Colorado receivers not named Travis Hunter. I'm not sure why. Will Shepard sits there at 3.8. Really easy exposure there, getting him in. I have cooled off of LeJohntay Weister a little bit, not because I don't think he's going to do well, but because of the type of lineup I'm running. I simply have to pay down at receiver. And then my call on Sam Brown, the Miami receiver, at 3.2 near min price. He's not going to bagel, and he has a chance to catch a long touchdown. I think Miami puts it on Georgia Tech. I don't think they take their foot off the gas like they did against FSU a couple weeks ago. This is a game that Miami, we're at this point now where we're having projections for the CFB playoff pool, or tree, I should say. Teams have to get some wins on the table that are, for style points, if you will. Because if you don't win your conference, but you have 9-10 wins, you want that at-large bid. They got to be able to go back and look at some of the games where you just detonated. Today is one of those games for Ohio State against Purdue, and today is one of those games for Miami against Georgia Tech. Can't afford Xavier Strepo. At least I can't. Love Isaiah Horton, but he's in this mid-range, bubble with Elijah Surratt and LeJohntay Weister, all of whom are very, very good options today. Jacoby George is a solid option at 3.9, although I prefer Shepard. So that leaves me with Sam Brown, who is near min price, who came into the season expecting to be the WR3 at worst. He's now kind of turned into the WR5, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have upside. As you go back to week 8 against Louisville, 3 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. He did that kind of thing at Houston all the time. He had a game against USF earlier this season, 275 and 1. This is not a volume play for me. Usually I like to target guys who are going to be peppered, right? Not to have to score a long touchdown. With Brown, what we're looking for is just that 1 to 2 catches, 50-yarder, and a score. He gets that, boom, done, we're good. I would love it if he did it in the first quarter, because then we could breathe easy and get ready for the afternoon window. Not typically going to get 4 or 5 catches from him, 60 yards, certainly wouldn't. Anything he gives us is going to be great. But the fact that he's going to be under 5% owned gives you exposure to a high-powered offense. It's crazy that nobody's really looking at him. And each game, let's look at his individual targets per game. He's very involved. Snaps-wise, he's on the field a lot more than you probably think. Right now, he's 4th on the team in targets at 47, right behind Jacoby George at 48, Isaiah Horton 64, and Xavier Restrepo 71. Arroyo at the tight end at 22. But Brown, 3rd on the team in yardage at 456. So definitely a deep ball guy, averages over 15 yards per catch. But looking at his targets here, we'll go through the season: 6, 5, 8, 5, 3, 7, 4, 4, and 5. So fewest being in week 5 against Virginia Tech, in which he had 3. That was a 3 for 30 game. That would be kind of the floor, right? And then the game in which he had 8 in Ball State, 5 for 44. And then the game against Louisville, 4 targets, 3, 125, and 1. So we're looking at 3 to 5 targets for a guy near min price, and he only needs to tee off on 1, maybe 2 of those to pay off, and nobody is using him. We've been pretty good on these cheap receiver calls through the years. We had Dalton Carnes a couple of weeks ago, although Damon Ward kind of ruined that play, but Carnes still had a productive day. I know this receiver room's full. They're trying to get the running backs going, but Cam Ward has a Heisman to win. Miami has to solidify themselves in case they do have a slip up before the end of the year and they don't win the ACC, although that seems unlikely at this point. You've got to have games in which you beat up on good teams. Georgia Tech is at least decent. Haynes King is a game time decision. Haynes King playing would probably be even better for us. But right now, I think I got to go with Sam Brown, and that's my gut call. In flex, you like Judkins or Higgins? Higgins going to be more popular. I do like the Quinshawn Judkins play. More on FanDuel on Judkins because of the touchdown upside there, and he's cheaper. Are you jamming in Daly and Sanders? Well, Jamie, last time I paid for Jalen Monroe, I said I'm never paying for expensive quarterbacks again, and I'm never playing 2 quarterbacks again. When I said it then, I meant it, but I was very upset. And I'm a lot more calm right now. And guess what? I don't think it's such a bad idea to play Sanders and Daly together. And right now, the main lineup that I'm sitting on, because of the Raymond play from Rutgers, it allows me to do 2 things. I can play Raymond as a 4th running back and then pay up for Travis Hunter, which makes sense since I'm playing Shedeur Sanders. But Sanders be playing on defense. It's a high price for me. I'm very uncomfortable paying that price for a receiver, as good as he is. The other option is to drop Taj Brooks, who I love, you guys know. Play Raymond and Darius Taylor as my early window running backs. Move Phil Maffa to the flex because we're not fading Maffa. We're making a decision with Clemson. We either play the running backs or we play the receivers. Today we're doing the running back thing. And that leaves me with a 9.9K salary for the super flex, which there can only be one answer at that point, and that is Bryson Daly, Captain America, which means I would have to fade Kanye Udo as well, who I love. I'm all about Kanye Udo, but I'm going to have to make some decisions here. And right now, I do have Sanders and Daly slotted in together for what it's worth. My man Brett's in the house. Someone is winning something today. Someone's winning something today. That, in truer words never spoken, appliance season. It's been 2 years since we knocked down that 10K and got ourselves a washer and dryer. Need to do some car repairs, a few other things. So yeah, let's get it done today. Let's win a few grand, eh? Best cheap wide receiver on DraftKings, Sam Brown, who I just talked about. Sadie. Sam Brown, Tony Johnson, who people like. You also have some pretty solid cheap options throughout Miami with Jacoby George, Dymere Miller's 4K. Brandon Innes has been getting some chatter there. Coy Eakin is still pretty damn cheap. Dalton Carnes still cheap. Earlier, I was asked for a 3-1 receiver. I had said if you can get to Brown at 3-2, do that. But you do have Bryant Wesco, who's healthy now, from Clemson, down there at 3-1. Closest thing to min price. Gunnar Helm's cheap. So there's a variety of different options. The one I have the most exposure to is Sam Brown. Whether or not he's the best remains to be seen, but I like my chances with him. Mr. Don always shows up, my man, asking about some betting stuff. I will open up my betting page here in a moment. Steve Mockler in the house. Who are your favorite 3 single entry running backs other than Maffa? So that'd be Kanye Udo, even though I just mentioned I may end up having to fade him because I want Daly. But other than Maffa would be Udo, Darius Taylor, and right now for value, Raymond. If salary doesn't apply and you're playing maybe Daniels at quarterback going cheap, it would be Taylor, Brooks, and Udo, those 3. But with the salary cap being there in place the way it is, you can sub out and put in Udo, Raymond, and Brooks. next to Taylor. LaQuint Allen, more of a GPP look. Jake really likes Allen. I like him too, but I can't play 5 running backs. I wish I could, but that's where I'm looking at there. And my kids and animals coming in and out of my area here, so if I seem distracted, I apologize. Taylor, Kelly, Shepard, or Brooks, Webster, Ole Miss receiver. I don't want to do the Ole Miss receiver thing. Now that we see that Watkins and Lee are playing, it kind of puts us to the test. Hey, come on. Special guest appearance. All right, get up here. All right, so for me, it would be Darius Taylor, Will Shepard. I have both of those, and then Josh Kelly. The lineup with Daly gives us a chance to fit Josh Kelly, and right now, the way that things are fitting for me, I can't actually pay up for Josh Kelly. So that's kind of where I'm leaning. If I have to come off of Taj Brooks, I still want a piece of Texas Tech. Kelly projected as chalk, gives us a chance to have some of that chalk. So the daily play, the Raven play allows that to happen. So Taylor, Kelly, Shepard for me. All right, let's get some more of these questions here. Concerned about Judkins with Henderson? Always. I mean, I do have a prop for Quinshon Judkins, 100-plus yards at plus 125. I think he has a chance to do that. Henderson doesn't look right, but there's going to have to be efficiency there. We know Judkins not going to get 28 carries. He's probably going to get 14 to 15, so he's going to have to hit a couple of home runs. I do foresee him more of a GPP look, but I'm just going to bet his prop and call it good. He is Jake's slate breaker of the weekend, though, for what it's worth. Do you rank LaQuint Allen over Taj Brooks overall? I don't, but it's very close. I mean, I would, that's a personal preference there. Like if you want Allen over Brooks, I wouldn't fight you on it. That's just one of those situations that, 6 or half dozen. Let's see. Picking a cheap Clemson wide receiver would be TJ Moore or Bryant Wesco. When Wesco was hurt, I got pretty high on, shouldn't say it like that. I was pretty high on Moore. He did well for us, but Wesco is one of my favorites. I think Wesco and Moore are both going to be extremely good over the next few seasons, but I do lean Wesco today. All right, I got to get my charger here. Hey, I'll be right back, guys. All right, sorry about that. When you live in a house with multiple pets and kids, sometimes things happen. All right. Favorite 4,500 or less flex play on DK for GPP. Let's see here. That one for me would be I want this Indiana. If you can get the Jaheim White at 4,600, that'd work. But I like this Indiana exposure. People are only going to have Surratt, but Omar Cooper has a long touchdown or two in him today. So I do like that play. I want some Indiana exposure. Probably going to have to get it in an alt build, but I do want some. Auguste, major leverage over Raymond. Yeah, it's in general. Like if people are stacking this game with the passers of Colorado, receivers of Colorado, receivers of Texas Tech, Brooks is going to start falling underowned. Auguste, as a value play, is going to start being underowned. He's only 3.9. He's been heavily involved, 22 carries against Cincinnati, 14 against Arizona. I think he's a fine play. If you don't trust Raymond, I get it, but Raymond is going to have more touches than Auguste today. I can tell you that with 100%, actually 99.99999% sureness. Can't say 100 because can never say 100. All right, let's keep it moving. Shout out for Logan Loya call in last night's player pool. A shipper, good job. Congrats, Panthers. Shipped a tournament yesterday. It's a weird one. What was he asking about? Running Royer in cash with Will Howard, Josh Kelly, and LeJohntay Weister. Yeah, Royer. I mean, Royer's going to be targeted regardless. He has a pretty safe option. He's 4K. You have several other plays you can look to. I think I'd rather play like a Jacoby George, something like that, or just double up and go Shepard with the Sanders stack. But Royer's fine. All right, I see the CBB questions coming in. I did post my projection sheet. Just know that guys are going to be over projected. We had an error on the sheet yesterday. We were trying to include game logs from partial last year, exhibitions, and other overseas things. It was creating massive errors, so we had to just go for this year only, and that's, of course, making it to where guys who have only played one game and went nuts are projecting crazy. I did provide some slate context notes in the Discord. We'll go through this as we go, game by game, lock by lock. Today's going to be a very, very busy day, and when I'm done here, I'm going to head to DK, where I'm going to place some of my bets and get that 400-yard prop for Shedeur Sanders. All right, bettors, I haven't forgotten about you. You running any Shedeur with Shepard as your only Buffalo? So the way it shook out, on Thursday, I was hell-bent on I'm playing Sanders no matter what, and I still am. Playing Will Shepard no matter what, and then LeJohntay Weister. Now, Weister, I think, is fadeable simply because there are other options in his range, but also because I do want to go a little bit cheaper where possible at receiver. He could score multiple touchdowns. I could see him having the 100-yard game, but more often than not, we're probably going to see like a nice PPR game from him, 6-7 catches perhaps, but whether that's 80 yards and a touchdown, like he's going to have one of those good games, good scores. But as my friend Jonathan, aka Varnicus, used to say when he was providing content, he's not going to have that gotta have it score, meaning like, damn, this dude just broke the slate. If you want to have any significant money, he has a score that you simply had to have. I don't know that I see that with him. But with my afternoon slate lineups, they will have Weister and Shepard. I may play around and see if I can fit Hunter, but the guys that aren't fitting in on my main lineup, like if I'm having to cut Taj Brooks, you can best believe in afternoon, I will be 100% Taj Brooks there. But as of now, the main team stack from that game for me is turning out to be Sanders, Shepard, and Josh Kelly, eating a little bit of chalk there with Josh Kelly. You don't always have to be so crazy, so unique. If you can play popular guys as long as you have a little bit of leverage somewhere else. And it looks like I'm getting that with Will Shepard. So which is crazy to me because, he had a bad game last week or 2 weeks ago when they played. Sure. But he's really figured out this offense. He's become a preferred weapon. And let's be honest, this Texas Tech defense is going to get absolutely obliterated. They did hold their own against Iowa State and Rocco Becht, but Sawyer Robertson made a fool of them. They gave up 500 yards to the Abilene Christian quarterback all the way back in week 1. Granted, that was a overtime game. Sanders trying to play for getting his name on the Heisman so that he can kind of be at the ceremony. Hunter playing for a Heisman. No reason to think that Colorado does not put up a big number. Now, an interesting question I had is why use Taj Brooks? If Sanders is throwing for 404, will they even run the ball? And the answer is yes. Texas Tech is pass. They also know that Taj Brooks is their best player. They had the game against Baylor where they gave up 59 points, lost by 24? Brooks had 32 touches. So doesn't really matter. He won't get game scripted out. He is a running back that's not it's nice to have. If he gets game scripted out, we can't use him. Like, you find a way to get Brooks the ball however you can. Also, running the football for Texas Tech would be smart, right? Because that keeps that Colorado offense off the field. Haynes King now warming up with the starters. Seems very likely that he will play. So keep in mind there. That's good for us and our Miami exposures. All right, betting guys. not forget you. Let's get into the betting part of this. So I have a handful of bets, and they have moved slightly. So I need to pull up where they're at earlier. So I drop a featured betting article that comes out for free every Tuesday. We had Colorado -3 then. That had since moved to -4. Let's see if that had any more movement. I still like Colorado, obviously, to win outright. Sure, on the road, it could be dangerous, but that -3, and if you can do it's -4.5 now. Still okay there. I think they do win by a touchdown for what it's worth. But you can do some alt line stuff there to get that back to -3. Also, what is it? Ohio State game? No, Maryland versus Oregon, over 57.5 points. Maryland is the worst passing defense in the world. Dylan Gabriel and company should have no problem throwing all over them. We saw the Minnesota offense explode. Max Brosmer throw for 1 million touchdowns against this Maryland team. What do you think Dylan Gabriel will do? So over 57.5 total points. Colorado -4.5, -3 if you don't mind doing some alt line stuff. And then props wise, Shedeur and over on FanDuel, Sanders 400 plus passing yards, which is currently +410. Really, really good. I feel very confident that he'll get close to that number, and that value you get is well worth it. Travis Hunter, 100 plus receiving yards at -118 over on FanDuel. And then I did drop a LeJontay Weister, 100 plus receiving yards there as well, +225. Some SGP action there. You can do some really, really spooky things there with the Colorado guys in a parlay together. And if it hits, you're going to be doing some major, major appliance buying. I had a few PrizePicks plays as well. I wanted to go back over. Shedeur Sanders over 328.5 passing yards, way over. Rocket Sanders at 4%, who did so well for us last week on the night slate. Catching passes too, over 89.5 rushing plus receiving yards. Dylan Risk, big play for UCF this week after dominating last week. Over 221.5 passing plus rushing yards. Dylan Gabriel over 286.5 passing yards against Maryland. Maryland defense stinks. Georgia Tech, Singleton or Rutherford preferred. Haven't played them in a long time, and they have been super chalky in the beginning of the season and kind of fallen off as people got tired of them. With King warming up, definitely gives us the opportunity to look there once again. I think Singleton, they're both the same price basically, right? 4.847. I think Singleton is the right answer, but I do think safety-wise, Rutherford provides you a little bit more, but I think Singleton's upside is the way to go. So I do lean Singleton there, but neither will be making my main lineup, but they're fine. Seeing if there is any other news out there. I think we're just about wrapped up. So get any last minute questions you have in. Now is the time. Starting lineup starting to come out for CBB, so I'll start popping those. Kelly Raymond or Udo Daimir Miller. So right now in my main sits Josh Kelly and Raymond. So that is the way that I will do that. I just think Antoine Raymond has major upside. He's going to be a very productive running back like Kyle Monagai. If you can shake off the whole Rutgers offense thing and cheap running backs, like there's just no one else. He should get a ton of work. And again, like I said, Minnesota's rush defense looks better on paper than it actually is. And Kelly provides you a path towards chalk and a really good play. I mean, Josh Kelly should do well today. So that's the way I would go. I don't like the idea of fading Kanye Udo by any means, but at the end of the day, somebody has to get the axe. We'll make sure to get him in the afternoon slate there. But for me, I'm right now looking at all the Bryson Daly I can handle. All right, so I think that will wrap it up. A little, well, yeah, keep the questions flowing. If you guys got them, we'll hang out. Superflex, Hunter, or Daly? So it would be Daly. You probably have a pretty close lineup to what I was staring at earlier. I don't know if Bryson Daly stays at the current projected 7.5% ownership that he is. I think that there's a good chance he starts to come up by this afternoon, especially as people, if they brick early, they need to get a high upside exposure, built-in leverage there over the 60% owned Udo. So I do lean Daly. Just because he was sick and or injured last week doesn't mean we should jump away from him. I typically have a rule of if a guy is coming back from an injury, I try to avoid. That typically applies to more long-term injury stuff. But Daly has that slate breaking upside. In this matchup against North Texas, he could throw down a 60. We've seen him do it before. I feel like this game turns into the game like North Texas had, what was it, with Memphis, and Army should be able to put up a ton of points here to where they put up, some ridiculous 45, 50 points. North Texas puts up 35 to 40. Army's defense has been elite, but this is one of those games or one of those teams that they just haven't faced an offense like this anywhere else. And we should be able to see some serious damage coming from Daly and, for that matter, from Udo. But this is one of those things where if we get a chance to roster Bryson Daly, who was projected to be over 50% last week, but this week under 10% in an even better matchup, we simply have to do it. I don't know how we could possibly get away from rostering him. And all it'll take is at the goal line, he takes the 3 touchdowns. Udo doesn't get any. Udo hits 90 yards and a touchdown. Like, obviously, Daly's a lot more expensive, but there are a lot of paths to success here when it comes to rostering Bryson Daly. I don't mind Travis Hunter. In fact, I'll probably try to get Hunter on the afternoon slate. It's just I have this hang up about paying up for an expensive wide receiver like that because the touches aren't guaranteed. Like, he's clearly going to get targets, but we can reasonably project a running back's touches. We know the quarterback is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. That's why people are so adamant, never 4 running backs, always 2 quarterbacks. Well, not necessarily always the case, but it's very rare for us to say, yes, 4 wide receivers, 5 wide receivers. So yeah, Daly over Hunter, but obviously love Hunter today as well. Who's your favorite wide receiver at 4.3 or below? Will Shepard. I'm on the Shepard train. Oh, looks like Haynes King is not going to go now. Let's see here. After warming up, Haynes King leaves warm-ups early, runs to the locker room with trainer just ahead of drills. So that's not ideal. I did want him to play for the fact of Miami, but yeah, it looks like Haynes King's got some trouble going back to the locker room early from warm-ups with the trainer. We'll monitor, should have some news there. Make sure you're locked on the Discord for any and all news that will be dropping. He says, I already have Will Shepard, needs another 4.3 option. Kind of putting us to the test there. I guess Jacoby George. Yeah, basically Jacoby George, Dymere Miller, or Joe Royer would be the answer, depending on the makeup of your lineup. All right. Any last minute questions? Get them in now. I do have a FanDuel core. It was Shador Sanders, Will Shepherd. I'm all in on that pairing, gives you a lot of salary savings. And then Quinshawn Judkins. While I'm not getting there on DraftKings necessarily, I am getting there on FanDuel. Sub 9K there, touchdowns. I feel like he could score multiple times today. Much more valuable on the FanDuel there. Doesn't necessarily need a 100-yard game to still pay off. So I am going with Shedeur Sanders, Quinshawn Judkins, and Will Shepherd as my FanDuel core. Very high there on him. Other FanDuel guys that I can really get behind. Let me pull up their pricing right quick. Do like Aaron Anderson for LSU going up against Bama today. Also like Kieran Lacey, pretty high on that side. Let's see. Evan Stewart at 6'5". Oregon exposure on them pretty heavy. Against Maryland will be on the night slate as well. A friend of mine asked about Caden Prather earlier, where he's 6K on FanDuel. Certainly possible. Tennessee getting a nice matchup against Mississippi State later. This is on the main slate. Squirrel White there at 5'9". Can get my guy Sam Brown at 5'8" there. Like him better on DraftKings for what it's worth. And then there was one other cheapie. Yeah, Dante Thornton at 5'2" for Tennessee. So some of the guys that I'm on there, along with my core there, just to build out your player pool. All right, so we're about 13 minutes to lock. I think that is going to do it for us. Going to do some last-minute things with college basketball and college football. These double duty locks are insane. You can expect going forward the CBB version of the Super Show Monday nights. That'll break down the big Tuesday slates every Monday. Thursday night, Jake and I till the very end of the college football season to break down main slates, and then every Saturday morning for the Q&A session. Once college football ends, the Saturday morning show will be gone, but we will move it to Friday night, basically college basketball Monday nights and Friday nights. And as we get past January, then we'll be on for 3 to 4 days a week. So lots of content, free and on the site. Let's get going. Let's get those window trips. Let's get those green screens. I appreciate you guys' continued support. If you can help me out on your way out the door, slam that like button on the YouTube channel there. If you're watching on X/Twitter, repost, like, and interact there. All of those things help with the show being seen by more, and our overall production is enhanced as well. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Let's get after it. Big today. Tons of games. Get into that Discord, both on CFB and CBB on the FTN Discord. We'll be posting news, starters, thoughts, slate stuff, all of it. Let's get it. Week 11. Let's go.